Hello, everyone. This is Lee Andrews with another Live with Lee. Today, we've got Jeff Buchanan, and this is going to hopefully be not only informational, but a little bit uplifting, well, maybe a lot uplifting, and give some folks some hope. So, Jeff, thank you for being with us today. We certainly appreciate it. You are being live streamed over YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So, no pressure. But this is really about telling your story. And to give you just a little bit of background on Jeff, Jeff was in a very different industry than what he is in now, doing something extremely different, and has moved into the user experience practice, and is now a senior UX designer for an energy organization. And I'll leave up to Jeff to share what he wants to share about where he was and where he's going to. But we're going to be talking about how he faced ageism. For those of you who don't know, Akathame, which is the company I am part of, is an international executive search and direct hire search firm. We focus on representing people like Jeff in the UX domain, marketing, communications, and design, senior leaders. We do things quite differently, as I'm sure many of you have come to find out as you begin to work with me. So, Jeff, again, thanks for coming. First question.
Yeah.
First question. You knew that you were facing ageism in your previous employer, at your previous employer. How did you know that you were facing ageism?
Well, I think it even goes beyond that, because my previous experience, and if you were to look at my profile, you would see that my previous experience for 20 years was in ministry. And it's actually a problem that exists pretty much as in the main vein ministry, unfortunately, is that, as churches and ministries are wanting to relate to a younger demographic, they feel the need to really focus on that younger generation, but oftentimes at the exclusion of the older generation. And so I began to realize that as I was getting older, I began to see, smaller signs, little microaggressions, that, those types of things happening throughout my career. And it really became pronounced, more so just a few years ago, when I began to hear some flagrant, basically discriminatory actions that were happening, saying that, we don't need people over a certain age in this type of role, and et cetera. So I began to realize that I was kind of continuing to move forward to a future that I really didn't want to embrace and really didn't want to have a part of. And I knew that I needed to make a change, but I really was kind of confused as what to do and how to do it.
I don't even know where to begin. I'm just as shocked today to hear what I'm hearing as I was when you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago. So let's be clear on this. You are in a faith-based organization that is discriminating against your age because of their market research, that they're marketing to a certain age group, and you don't fit that group. Is that right?
And unfortunately, yeah, I don't want to oversimplify in those type of things, because the heart of it was really to reach a specific age group where he felt like there was a deficit. But oftentimes what happens, and sometimes this is unintentionally, is that they will overcompensate strategically and not look at kind of the collateral damage that happens with that strategy, if you will. So what was happening is that the heart behind it and the effort is to reach a younger demographic. But oftentimes they're really doing it in an overcompensating way and not realizing the harm that it's bringing to others that may be, of older generation. My philosophy and my worldview is that, in any type of community, I believe you have to have a multi-generational representation, or you don't have community. What you have is really kind of an anemic view, or a very weak, myopic view of what a community could be. But there needs to be a kind of a cross-pollination across generations for any type of community, whether it be faith-based, whether it be in the workplace, whatever that may be. And when I see that not happening, when I see that kind of anemia, if you will, happening within organizations, you can see kind of the repercussions and some of the consequences that happen as a result of that way of thinking.
Yeah. What you're talking about is inclusion.
Exactly.
You're talking about inclusion. I mean, that is the definition of inclusion, is addressing every audience of all types to make sure that you have every type of consumer of your information product or service. Yeah, interesting. So you knew this was happening. It wasn't a surprise. What was your strategy? How did you tackle this? Because I mean, first of all, emotionally, mentally, how did you wrap your head around that?
Well, to be completely honest, it took me a while. When I began to see it happening, you begin to have this kind of self-dialogue happening in your head going, well, you've been in this one vein for so long, there hasn't been the ability to, change. What about your skill sets? What do you have to really bring to the table? And you begin to kind of just do this self-talk that kind of continues to kind of drill you down into a further pit of despair. And be honestly, I didn't handle it well. For a period there, I had gained probably about 30 pounds. I'm an emotional eater, so I eat my feelings, and I gained about 30 pounds or so. And I really struggled with depression, something that I really kind of dealt with, and just kind of going, okay, this is my trajectory, and I don't really know how to stop it. So really, but it was because of my faith. It was because of my belief in how God created me and the purpose that He had for me, that I really was able to kind of reorient myself and decide to make a change. And there's a saying that sometimes you will make a change when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. You'll change. And I had finally reached that threshold of saying, you know what, I've had enough. I'm going to do whatever's necessary in order to live the most fruitful and most profitable life that I possibly can.
All right, that's another unpacked statement. So let's take that one step at a time. So there's also another saying that says, change you must or die you will.
I'm sorry?
Right? There's another saying that says, change you must or die you will.
Right.
That, life is about constantly changing. And right. So what I'm suggesting is that if you don't have that faith in yourself, or you're losing faith, find that faith from somewhere. Reach out to that tree if you have to, but whatever it is, there's got to be some kind of power that's greater than you that can help you through this.
Absolutely. You just can't do it alone. So, for me, it was, again, it was my faith in God. It was also the support of my wife. It was the support of friends and such that I leaned into during the process. I got counsel from, and really kind of navigated through that. But the first step is admitting that you cannot do this by yourself, and that you are not by yourself. That there are people that will surprisingly reach out to you and support you when you think that they wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's critical. I really do. So that is, you have to hit bottom before you can get back up.
Right. Exactly.
That's all there is to it. So tell us, what was how did you tackle this? Okay, so now your head is out of the sand and you've got the help. That was how you started to tackle it. What was next? How did you know that you needed a career change into something completely different?
Well, I started to ask myself, what is it in my past that I felt like I could bring to the table? What was some of my past experiences? And I did have past experience. I was a database analyst in a hospital for about 5 years. And so I did have some IT skills I was able to bring into the mix. I am a lifelong learner. I do, I have 2 master's degrees. I love, continuing to self-develop and self-education and such. And so I kind of looked at my previous experiences and just kind of the way that I kind of approach life in general to begin to determine, okay, what is it that I think that I could do that has an interest for me? And I've always had an interest in getting into, kind of design and kind of the IT world and such. Is something that actually, it was a skill set I brought with me into all of my experience. Whenever I worked for either a church or for a ministry organization or whatever, I was bringing these experiences in and making myself really indispensable, or trying to, kind of gird up my skill set within that organization through continuing to rely upon my IT experience and knowledge. And so I continued to build that up and realize, what, I do enjoy this. And I want something that would allow me, if I wanted to move, give me some flexibility, but also that I could see going, long term with longevity. And so I initially started out thinking, well, I'm going to get into coding, and then began to walk in a little bit more realization about what user design experience was, human-centric design, and realizing, oh my gosh, there's something here to where I can incorporate my IT skills, but also the people skills that I've learned over the past 20 years, and just the psychology involved with this of going, I've been studying people for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
And so I've been learning about behavior. I've been learning, through all of this and going, wow, I can kind of assimilate this all together and possibly pursue a new career path. So, for me, it was kind of looking back of what I've accumulated throughout my life up to this point, and how can I kind of focus that into something that would continue to bring me reward moving forward.
I think that's a big word right there. It's what you've accumulated that you've packaged up and marketed, right? So
Right.
I think that that's key here. So if you've been around the block a time or two and you're wondering how to make that career shift, it's look at your aggregated capabilities and start connecting the dots into how that applies to today's job market, right? And
Right.
requirements.
Right.
So you landed into user experience design because you connected those dots. Your ability to interact with people, your ability to identify problems, your technology background. You didn't go the coding route because that would have sounded to me like it would have been too much isolation for you, that you want to be part of that bigger solution. Is that right?
Exactly. And it's just something to where, again, there was a creative part of me too, because part of my backgrounds, I have 2 music degrees. And so there's this whole creative side of my brain that I really wanted to keep, employed and used throughout that. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that, there's actually research out there that shows that as you get older, you're better able to assimilate past experiences and information together and better able to strategize as a result of that. There's this kind of, misunderstanding out there that as you get older, your brain becomes, the plasticity of your brain begins to feel, and there's research showing that that's necessarily true. It's how you exercise it, how you utilize it in the mind frame that you have, that, if you keep that going, that you're actually better able to take all of these experiences and all this knowledge from the past and assimilate it and kind of cognitively diversify it, if you will, to be able to better strategize and to come up with solutions to problems.
So it's interesting because this craft, user experience, creative marketing communications, that whole function within an organization is a magnet for musicians.
Yeah.
Magnet.
Absolutely.
It's because you've got to use both sides of your brain. You got to use every function you possibly can.
Right. I remember a number of years ago, IBM was actively seeking out music majors. And one of the reasons why is because there is enough math in music theory to where the brain, they discovered that, they're processing it in the same way. And they made great transitions into that type of field as a result of that.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So you decide to get how did you learn UX design? What was your process there for learning that craft?
Well, I attended kind of a boot camp, if you will. Went for about 10 months, and it was kind of an intensive for about 10 months, close to a year. And then I also continued to do self-study on my own, realizing that was just kind of my introduction, if you will, whatever, but it's something that I knew that I need to supplement and continue to study and to develop. And it's something that I'm approaching with the aspect of going, excuse me, that I know that I need to continue my development. That's what makes a good UX designer, is that you're continuing to educate yourself. So I'm actually looking into another master's program that I want to start next year and kind of begin to go down that path. For me, it's just, I really enjoy learning, and something that, I want to become as proficient and as excellent in my craft as I possibly can. And that involves sacrifice and involves investment as well. So I have to take that mentality.
What kind of sacrifices did you and your family have to make for that career switch?
Oh, wow. Well, I think first of all, just coming to the determination, you know what, you really have to give yourself time to grieve. I think that there's a grieving process that you have to acknowledge in there, that when you've been in a particular field for a long enough time, that you've got to come to a recognition of going, wow, this is coming to a close. I saw myself kind of, finishing out my whole entire vocational career in this field, but that's not going to happen now. And, you kind of feel almost like a statistic, or you feel, there's just all this stuff that comes in your mind that you've got to reconcile and to deal with. and to grieve. So I think the first step really is kind of go through that grieving process, knowing that, you're going to make a career change when you didn't expect to. And so, that in itself is a sacrifice. But then there's a sacrifice also of, the investment that was required to continue to, go back to school, to learn, and to kind of step out into kind of the unknown. And then also the sacrifice of preparing for the unknown, knowing that, okay, there's financial risk here. There's risk of, that we could possibly have to relocate, a number of different things. But again, you have to ask yourself, is your happiness worth the risk? If you want to pursue a fulfilling life, you're going to have to take risk in life to be able to pursue that. So, I had to kind of come to that process and that determination to, make those judgment calls to know that it was time to move on.
Yeah, that's a big decision. And it's a family decision, right? That wasn't just you
Exactly.
making a solo decision. What kind of concerns did your wife have?
I think that, well, you know what, I'll have to say my wife was incredibly supportive. And if she had any concerns, it really wasn't vocalized. I think that she also, had enough concern for me as an individual, as a person, to know that, I want you to be involved in something that, is going to bring you fulfillment, that's going to bring you joy in your day-to-day work and such. And so she knew the risk and was willing to prepare to take those. That's something we've always been committed to in our marriage, is that, we've often taken big risk and made big moves when it involved the unknown. But we also know that sometimes, well, every single time for us, when we've done that, it's yielded results that we never expected. And we've been pleasantly surprised.
Nice. Well, that's also a leap of faith, and also knowing that you have capabilities, right?
Right.
And you're there's that internal sense that you just know instinctively and intuitively that you're doing the right thing. And I think when you listen to that inner voice, you find more desire to take those risks. Then they become as risky, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's just, life is risk, and, if you don't take risk, then that's when, you find yourself within the mundane, the stagnation, and the depression and isolation. I think that, at any point in time, whenever, great achievements have always happened with great risk.
Yeah.
I think that you just have to be willing to step out there. And it doesn't mean that you're not scared. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, something could go wrong. If it does, it doesn't mean the end of you try again. And, I discovered that in the interviewing process. I discovered that, after I finally got my accreditation and certification and such, going through the interview process.
So let's talk about that. So now you're out there in the competitive workforce looking for this user experience role. What kinds of challenges did you face when you were applying for these jobs, if any? Did they just look at your resume and go, oh my goodness, he has everything and then some? Or did you get, not quite?
Yeah, I think, to be fair, I think that fortunately in the area that I live in, the Charlotte area, there is a little bit of pre-COVID. There's a little bit of an IT boom that was happening, and so the demand was exceeding the supply, and so it served to my advantage, definitely with that. But there were, but the biggest hurdle for me was, talking to myself and saying, you know what, are you really trying to do this at your age? Who's going to take you seriously? And started to kind of going, oh my gosh, do I look 50? I need to start coloring my beard? What do I need to do to, compensate? And I felt kind of this panic begin to emerge. And I had to say, you know what, wait a minute. I've heard too many stories where people have had success, and why can't I be one of those success stories? Or why can't I, kind of encounter something, like that? So, but there was my self-talk and my mental frame of mind was the biggest hurdle initially, and having to deal with that.
Yeah, and I think that we need to talk about that self-talk piece. So what did it take? You hit your bottom. At some point you hit that bottom and your self-talk changed, right? What was that bottom?
The bottom was, I think, really was kind of getting to a point to where For me, when that happens, it's really just a point of reaching an absolute level of dissatisfaction and reaching a point of going, you know what, do I really want to live the rest of my life like this? And then trying to take a future perspective view and seeing myself maybe in 5 or 10 years, and I didn't like the picture that I saw. And I just am a believer to where I'm going, I, I've always had this tenacity of going, I don't believe that you have to stay in an unpleasant or uncomfortable situation. Who told you that you have to stay in that? I've seen people go, well, it's too late to make a change at this point, or for whatever issue, not necessarily related to age, that feel that it's just too late, or they can't make that change. Going, well, who said that you can't make that change, and why do you believe that you have to be here? So for me, it was kind of getting to that point of realizing that no, this is not what I want, and then seeing that the result it was taking on my health, not only physical health and mental health. I just said, no, I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be the best husband for my wife. I'm not going to be the best man. I'm not going to be the best at my job. So why stay here? And I just had to reach to that point of just simply saying enough.
So now you're interviewing for these jobs. You've got it in your mind that you're in your 50s, you've got gray hair, and you already have the belief that people are going to be ageist with you, right? And they're not going to, and you did not experience that. Is that right?
Absolutely. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I did not experience, of course, you got rejections, you got ghosted by recruiters, all that kind of stuff. But I never got the sense that it was because of, discrimination. I felt because going, okay, doesn't necessarily have the skill set yet, or doesn't necessarily have what they're looking for, in various aspects of the job description. So I just really just, but actually I got a number of interviews, and actually had actually secured probably a couple of job offers before I landed on this one. So it was really, for me, it was kind of a redeeming experience as far as getting out there and finding that no, there are people out there that still believe that they have value. And fortunately, the company I work for is excellent in that area as far as inclusivity, and not once did I feel that my age was even a factor.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I've been very vocal about this, that if people feel as though that they have been discriminated against for any reason, I offer my favorite word, which is next. Next.
Right. Exactly.
Why would you want to work with those people in the first place? Why would you want those people anywhere in your life or around you? They are psychic vampires, and they will drag you down with the biases that they have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you have the power to change your own situation.
I also want to bring back the point that you made, that it was your self-talk. It was your own biases that hurt yourself.
Right.
Right. So you believe that whatever you were taking with you from your previous environment, that other people would be the same way in a future environment. Why would they want to work with somebody at my age doing this and blah, blah, blah. So that was a bias that was implanted in your psyche, which you thought was going to apply to others, until you realize, no, that's not what I want. And that's not, I can't make that generalization about everybody.
Absolutely. Exactly. And you really have to get to that point. You kind of have to do, there's a great book out there I recommend by William Backus called Telling Yourself the Truth. And really just kind of walks through and just addresses this self-talk, this cognitive self-talk that you have. And I'm not going to lie to you and say that, I'm completely free of that. I don't struggle with that anymore. Absolutely. There's imposter syndrome. There's all this kind of stuff that comes with anything within the job. But I've learned to recognize that going, well, of course I've got something else to learn. I'm always going to have something else to learn. I'm not, omniscient in as far as my knowledge and such. And the thing is that I'm always going to have something to learn. If you realize, come from that place of humility, then it takes away the insecurity of it. And realizing that, there's some stuff that I do know. There's some stuff that I don't know. And the stuff I do know, I can help other people with. And I'm going to lean into people that know what I need to know. And if you just look at it from that perspective, it really kind of takes some of the threat and the insecurity out of the experience.
So know your capabilities, know your interests, know your wants. And I really want to have you, taking advantage of having you with me. So companies, I'm on this other kick right now about job descriptions, especially in UX. And I feel as though I talked to two senior practitioners this week, two, who said that they don't want to be represented as UX practitioners because they feel very strongly that the practice has become watered down to become web designers, mobile app designers, developers, things like that. And I think it's company by company, right?
Right.
Leader by leader, practice by practice. So when you talk about trying to define yourself in this space, when you look at a job description, and I'm sure that you're keeping your eyes, and you always just keep your eyes and your ears open, even if you're currently working, because you want to see what's going on out there, right? Job
Right.
descriptions are great learning about what an organization could be going through if they're written well. But when you see all these skills, and here you are at the latter part of your career, which is, we're talking about age, does it get overwhelming? Do you get that overwhelming sense that there's so much that you have to learn that it's, you can't fathom learning that, and then your mental, then you've really got to do that
Absolutely.
pack.
Yeah, that was overwhelming going the experience as well, looking at all this and going, wait a minute. It becomes apparent that there's so many factors involved to where HR is going to take this and they're going to kind of just assimilate a bunch of things that they assume would qualify for that particular position and job, or actually the company may not even really know what UX design is. What I see is I'm looking here and going, you're not looking for a UX designer, you're looking for a graphic designer. You're looking for somebody that can basically make everything pretty, if you will. And that's not to demean what graphic design does, because that's a whole skill set within itself. But, that they're looking for basically this unicorn that companies are beginning to figure out that doesn't really exist, and it's really not to your benefit, because you're asking everybody to just kind of be barely mediocre at everything. And looking at this and going, no, I'm not. I don't feel like I need to learn how to fully code a website. I don't. That's not what a UX is. That I have specific skills. I have specific training for this particular field, and this is what user experience design is. And out of desperation, the tendency can be to go, well, I'll apply for anything. And to go, yeah, but you could be applying for something and get yourself in a job that could be absolutely miserable, because they're expecting you to do everything under the sun. So, and then also realizing what you see on the job listings and everything is not necessarily always the case. A minimum of 5 years experience, a minimum of this, and going, okay, but that's what the HR is putting out there. You have to understand that probably what the hiring manager or the person that's actually doing the hiring may actually not be looking for that, but that's what's actually gone through their HR system. So there's a number of different things. My suggestion is to work with a good recruiter, someone that that actually cares about you as well as their commission, and as well as what their what their responsibilities are, and help you navigate through that. And that's a key thing too, of trying to find a good recruitment representative to work with you.
Yeah. Well, y'all know you got one right here, right? So let's just
Yeah.
get
Contact Lee.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though, but I think that this is a systemic problem in organizations, that there is not a strong enough relationship between recruitment and hiring managers, because number one issue is time. Number two issue is that the recruiter is not a practitioner. Right? And so the recruiter is taking nothing but direction from the hiring manager and not offering as much value as they might be able to, or excuse me, the hiring manager is overruling the recruiter and not listening to the recruiter who has insight and capability. So it really does need to become a partnership.
Right.
And so in my experience doing that, a recruiter also has to know when to walk away. If they can't represent Jeff Buchanan the way Jeff needs and deserves to be represented, the recruiter's got to be able to say, you know what, you're not going to get Jeff.
Absolutely.
And so we need to know what our walkaway points are. And ageism is a very big walkaway. If you find that somebody is, and believe it or not, we are up at our 30 minutes. That goes by very fast. So Jeff, I do want to thank you so much. And I do want to leave the audience with this. If you are up against any type of discrimination whatsoever, ask yourself if you really want to be associated with that person and that organization. If that is prevalent within that organization, you have a choice. It may not feel like you have a choice at that very moment because of economic issues, of ego issues, fear issues, whatever they are, I promise you that that next phone call, that next resume sent, that next interview, things will change. We just have to be patient for the right thing to happen, and it will. I promise you, it will. Jeff, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and no more ageism. That's it. We're done. Basta. All right. Have a great one. Don't leave me just yet, Jeff, while I end out the broadcast. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.